My name's Maria Hadden. I use she, her pronouns. I'm alderperson of the 49th Ward, and for the non-Chicagoans, I am a city council member. And the 49th Ward is largely, almost entirely, the Rogers Park community, with parts of Westridge as well. Rogers Park fans in the house? All right. Unsurprising. So I was really excited when Tracy told me about Tiny Home Summit 2.0. We were at, it was last October, Tracy, we were at the LGBTQ Funders Conference, and there was just some great work on display from LGBTQ activists and organizers and professionals around the country on addressing homelessness and affordable housing. At the time, of course, we were also doing a lot of organizing around Bring Chicago Home. It was great to be in that space, Tracy, with you and with others. And I was like, let me know as soon as it's coming. Let me know as soon as the Tiny Home Summit is coming. So I've particularly been looking forward to this day since last year. Our panel this morning is going to focus on one of the things that I think is what I'm most excited about. It's one of the reasons why I ran for office, what I like to do in government, and what sometimes can make me an impatient legislator. And that is, we're going to talk about real examples. You know, we can identify problems, we can identify needs. Some of the difficulties that we face is getting to that implementation stage. So I'm excited for the four folks that we have with us today, because each of them is going to give you a kind of a brief presentation. So this will be a little bit of a different format. We'll get to conversational kind of Q&A, but we're going to start with a little bit more formal presentation. But we're really going to get into the nuts and bolts of some examples, right, from all over the country of what people are doing with tiny homes and addressing housing. So I'll let them do more of an introduction when they come up here. So we've got Tracy Henke from Austin. You can raise your hand, you can see their faces on the screen there. We have Ralph Neese from Seattle. We have Inti Gonzalez from the Bay Area. And we've got Jamie Zachary of Dallas. Notice the heavy West Coast representation here. So this is our Great Lakes Challenge team, right? Great Lakes Challenge. We're going to hear about these amazing examples. Hopefully we're going to learn a lot. And after they give their presentations, I'll get us kicked off with a couple of questions, but then we were just going to open it up. We'll do questions from the audience. So without further ado, we're going to start off with Tracy.
Good morning again. Thank you. I am Tracy Henke, Director of Relationships and Giving with the Mobile Loaves and Fishes in Austin, Texas. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about our Community First Village, our 51-acre master planned community for the formerly chronically homeless and growing. And we are currently under construction with an additional 176 acres. So there's a lot I want to share with you, but I'm going to start with this video.
I know that in your family, you have a drug addict, an alcoholic, or somebody battling a behavioral health issue. But your family comes up underneath that individual to ensure that they never find themselves up underneath the bridge and on the street corners of our respective cities. We believe that the single greatest cause to homelessness is the profound, catastrophic loss of family. Goodness, it's giving your best first.
Got a lot of ends on these sandwiches, man. We must have some short loaves. On the bread. No wait.
Goodness is love in action.
Running out of the house. TV also.
we're here to serve.
We really thank groups like you guys coming out here, opening your hearts and minds. Just experience the village today. That's your number one goal. There's a lot of work to do, but a lot of it is going to be relational.
It's not a handout.
It's a hand up. We're trying to do this and make it bigger, get more people. Let's clear the streets of people that are chronically homeless.
With our neighbors.
This community. This hope.
I have found a lifestyle of abundance.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
Housing alone will never solve homelessness, but community will.
Housing alone will never solve homelessness, but community will. I think that's why you all are in this room today, and I'm glad to join you. I want to share a little bit more about how we got to this point. Mobile Loaves and Fishes is a 26-year organization in Austin, Texas. As you saw one of our food trucks, we started taking food out to people on the streets in 1998, and we bought our first RV in 2005. So we bought an RV and placed it into an RV park and lifted one of our friends off the streets and placed them into a house. He still has a home today. We learned very early on while we were doing this again and again, up to probably 40 more times. We were buying RVs and placing them into an RV park. They were scattered throughout the city, and we realized we were missing something. We were missing community. So we started dreaming of the place that exists today, which is a fully built out 51-acre master planned community for the formerly chronically homeless. We have about 535 homes, a mix of true tiny homes, 200 square feet studios, to several 400 square feet park model RVs, to 3D printed homes, a variety of housing types that people get to choose where they want to live. They get to choose the home that they want to be in. Everyone pays rent. I think we talked about some skin in the game earlier, right? Everyone pays rent, and it is permanent housing. They do not have to go elsewhere. So some important things to this that we learned is building that community. We have discovered in those that we're working with that profound catastrophic loss of family, the break in that familial unit. And with that, we are in a sense forging family, forging community where we are. So all of the homes are oriented towards each other. We have a community center of sorts. We call it the living room. You saw in the video where we can do a lot more outside in Austin, Texas. I know our weather is really great, but we have our newest building is a 9,000 square foot building that we call the living room, which has a computer lab, program spaces, game room, a TV room where people like to watch their soaps. And we have a Community Works Entrepreneur Hub. We have some art house programming, which is one of my favorite places to be. People can get their hands dirty, they can create, they can do purposeful work, and they actually earn a dignified income from that. So they can earn by selling their products. We can commission people and then we sell them. There's a variety of dignified income working opportunities throughout the property. And some of the other ones include property beautification, doing some of the landscaping, our janitorial, working with our volunteers, and working in another favorite of mine, our community gardens. So we do have several acres of garden, organic farming on property with a free farmers market to our neighbors every Saturday. They can get the fresher than fresh produce. We have chickens and they get eggs, a variety of opportunities in that way. Today, we have about 450 people living there with room to grow. And the average age is about 57. The average age of death is just shy of 60. The average time they spend on the streets before moving home is 9 years. Significant bouts of homelessness. So we are building community together. We just recently opened a hospice home. As we're realizing that we are in an aging in place space, some of our neighbors, we heard it, are dying. They die very early. And so now having this hospice home that we're able to operate on site, if they need that, they can stay close to home, close to neighbors, close to their community, close to their families, which is a beautiful, beautiful space that we get to be in, because we have services often for those who are passing away. We have a memorial garden. We have an opportunity for people to put their ashes in, and we will remember them forever. And so it's a beautiful piece of dignity upon life and upon death as well. And so these are some of the many, many things. And then I briefly mentioned we are growing. So we are under construction on an additional 127 acres, which will total us to 1,900 homes in the next 8 or so years. So thank you.
Well, good morning again, everyone. My name is Ralph Nace. We're in Seattle with the Low Income Housing Institute. So Lehigh Low Income Housing Institute is known for being as an affordable housing provider in Seattle, in pretty much throughout Northwest Washington. And so we started our tiny house village journey about 8 years ago, when we had this meeting where, hey, what else can we do? We acknowledge the fact that we need more housing. Homeless population is in serious need of assistance, and we all hear the same solution from everyone. We need more housing. We need more apartment buildings, apartment complex, affordable housing. But we all know too that it takes 2 years, 3 years, sometimes more to build one, from acquisition, permitting, actual construction to final inspection and certificate of occupancy. It takes a while. And so we see a lot of these vacant lands. We see a lot of these abandoned lands that's just sitting there. We have lands that we develop for affordable housing that takes 3 years, 4 years it just sits there. And so we, decided, hey, let's look into tiny house villages. Let's build one. And so fast forward 8 years later, right now we have about 80 tiny house villages in 5 different cities. So we are focusing mainly on tiny house villages for homeless shelters, but we also have one village, we call it Sandpoint Cottage, which is a permanent supportive housing. And so we are currently in development for future and more permanent supportive housing through tiny house villages. So tiny house villages in Seattle and in Washington, we have different focuses. Some are for women, for families, BIPOC, Native American communities. So most of them are low barrier. They're all from different ownership, from private land and public land. Each of the tiny house villages are 8 by 12 feet, 120 square foot. We have hygiene, kitchen facilities, community spaces. We have 24/7 staffing. And most of our tiny houses are built by volunteers, neighbors, and faith organizations. Each tiny house is furnished with mattress, bedding, storage, heaters, welcome kit, which includes a lot of hygiene items and cleaning supplies. Like what I said earlier, we have 24/7 staffing. We have a shelter operations manager. who manages the site, case manager, and shelter monitors. The shelter monitors are 24/7 staffing that ensures the safety and security of the villages. Each village has its own operating and management plan, supportive services plan, grievance procedure, and code of conduct, which is like the house rules. We recognize that in order for this to make it happen is that we need case management. And so we have case managers on site. We recently just added, we partnered with some agencies where we provide behavioral health and substance abuse counseling as well. Just a little bit on outcomes. 2,000 people served last year in tiny houses. 53% of the village client exiting transition to permanent housing, which it is a lot bigger number compared to a traditional shelter. The cost of those tiny houses are about $5,000 per unit, and most of our villages are tiny house units are volunteer built. Initial setup cost of the village is about $600 to $900, depending on the location, depending on the city, county, permitting, and what exactly we need to do on sewer, power, water. There's the inside of a tiny house. We recently just added air conditioning to most of our tiny house as well. We have the hygiene facilities, our community kitchens. We just opened this Maple Leaf Village a couple of months ago, and this one is a low barrier site. True Hope Village is a family village. Miracle Village is in a different city in Tequila. This one is in Olympia. South End Village is another families with kids village. And we have Raven Village that focuses on Native Americans. And this is the Sandpoint Project. This is a permanent supportive housing through a tiny house. And each, I think here's a site map, a site plan, where it's complete with kitchen, living room, a loft, bedroom, and heat pump inside. This is the community house. And so I guess in closing, I just want to say that coming from someone who's seen it from the very beginning, from where we started from, let's try this for the first time, let's do this, and seeing the transition from one village to 18, and from seeing all the people, who live there, from seeing them from the streets, moving to a tiny house, moving to a permanent housing, and some people even bought their own home and come back to us 2 years later, and hey, I just bought a house. Thanks for providing tiny houses for us. Like, I want to help too and give back. I just want to let everyone know that it works, and we need more of these. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ralph.
Hello, my name is Inti Gonzalez, and I am an art and organizing consultant for Tiny Village Spirit. Tiny Village Spirit is a nonprofit organization that is based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we build tiny houses for homeless people. Currently, we're focusing on youth, but we're going to be working on some adult villages as well. I would like to start with some history. In 2007, Sally Hyman created Youth Spirit Artworks, which was an art-based, youth-led job training program. In 2016, we held meetings asking the youth what would be meaningful for them. What do they want to be a part of? What would they like to do with the project? From our meetings, the youth concluded that they wanted to build a tiny house village for youth. The motto being 100 homes for 100 homeless youth. From 2016 through around 2018, we built our first tiny house and we did planning about what we wanted at the village, what was going to be the site setup, how long are youth going to be staying there for. The youth decided that they wanted it to be resident-led. They said that they wanted gardens, that they wanted art, that they wanted murals and plants. Also around during that time, we started building a power group, a base group to build stability and an image of reliability to city leaders so that when we did presentations or proposals, we would get more likely accepted. Once we built that group, in 2020, we got accepted to get a free piece of land that was 2 acres from the Oakland City. We moved in 26 houses, and then later, the following year, we moved in the first and the second group of youth to live at the village. Here's how it looks in the end. After the youth moved in, we still continued doing construction. A lot of it was doing art and beautifying the place. We painted a mural, 1.5 acre mural, on the ground. This is just a small piece of the mural, but there are some drone shots where you can see the whole mural, but very beautiful place. We wanted to make sure that the youth were living in a place, even though they were in a small home, they were living in a place where they felt dignified, where they felt supported. And honestly, I would live at a place like that. And that's what we want to do for the youth and for any residents. So in 2023, the people who helped build the Oakland Tiny House Village moved on from Youth Spirit Artworks, and we created a new nonprofit organization called Tiny Village Spirit, where our main focus was to build tiny house villages for homeless people. During the same year, we found a piece of land in Richmond, which was owned by our pal, Richmond Police Activities League, who got the land leased to them 8 years ago and were planning to create a farm and garden as a culinary program to teach their youth about farming and growing food and cooking food. So we came to them and we said, hey, can we take a piece of your land and build a village on it, and we'll help you build out your farm and garden. So now we're creating this big project where it's going to be a little village and there's going to be a farm and garden around it. We're helping them with building the planters, beautifying the place. We already put a little tree orchard in the back with almost 100 different fruit trees. So yeah, definitely going to be a real beautiful artistic project. Here's some images that our SF architecture team created. This is what the end result is going to be looking like, and hopefully it's going to look even better. One of the things that we did to make this process as well go smoother for this project, as I said earlier, for our Oakland Village, we got 20 interfaith congregations to help us build the village, to help bring support so that we could make it easier for us to get support from city leaders. With this village, we partnered with a bunch of nonprofit organizations around us to help build and also help run the village. And this helped us get through the neighborhood councils. So we got support from the neighborhood councils. Once we got support from the neighborhood councils, we were able to go to the Richmond City and be like, look, we were partnered with all these people. We got support from the neighborhood councils. We were able to get through. So having this power base can make this process a lot easier and make it more possible for you to be able to get free pieces of land that is given to you from the city. Our model, firstly, is unhoused and underserved people are involved in decision-making, all kinds of decision-making. We want the residents to feel like they have leadership and to give them empowerment, and we feel like that's very important for all of our projects. We are also run by volunteers and people from the community that are allies of the unserved. Obviously, a lot of art and beauty everywhere. We want people to be living in a beautiful place, and beauty is healing. And considering the circumstances, we don't want it to be stale. They're in a small house and then it's a stale environment. We want them to be in a place where they feel dignified. We're also planning, especially for this village and specifically for adult villages, designing opportunities for residents to build equity whenever possible. For example, a resident, after living at the village for a certain amount of time, they can eventually buy their house or keep their house, and when they leave, they can bring it with them. Some of the lessons that we learned from this whole process is, for example, when getting a free site, let's say you're trying to get a free site that's leased to you from the city, it's important to choose land that you would estimate that you'd be able to use for at least 10, 15 years. You don't want the city to sell the land or to potentially build something else there. So it's important to look out for this. Second lesson is resident mental health and boundary issues. Obviously, a lot of people who are experiencing homelessness can have mental health challenges, substance abuse challenges, and it's good to take note of that and realize that there should be support around that to make sure that they are safe with themselves and also safe with other people. One of the things that we feel that is also very important is to make sure that sexual harassment trainings are brought into the picture right from the beginning and held strong. We especially notice this for youth villages, but I believe also for adult villages and period. It's obviously an issue in our community in general. The second lesson we learned was richer cities can be more difficult to build in. Our first village, which was built in Oakland, originally the youth said they wanted it to be built in Berkeley because a lot of them were from Berkeley. So we spent 2 years trying very hard to get a plot in Berkeley. And once we got the plot, the neighbors did not want us to build anything. 50 neighbors came to the meeting and they were all against it. Even some threatened to sue. So we realized that we shouldn't focus too hard on the location and we should have just built. Find a place and build it and then make it as safe as we can, basically. And another thing is, in order to get accepted by cities in general, it is very important to have some kind of power base. It just makes it much easier and you to seem more reliable, especially in the beginning of your process. If you're just starting out and you're partnering with a bunch of organizations or congregations or groups, it can help you seem more powerful, more strong, and they're more likely to accept your proposals. Lastly, we learned that keeping volunteers and members involved in systemic change is also very important. We want them to continue being involved in our projects, but we realize that we also want to funnel them into something deeper and also very important. So these are some points that I particularly want to touch on, which is systemic change, I think is very, very important. I think all, if not most, of tiny house organizations or organizations in general that are trying to make a difference should try to have some kind of focus on systemic change. The issues with housing is really in the system because we have more than enough to build housing and actually to do even more than that. But because of the way our system is so corrupt, it causes a lot of these issues. And if we were to address the system issue of housing, to truly address it, it wouldn't just resolve housing issues. It would resolve basically all of the major issues that are going on in our country. And if we kept going further, it would resolve issues that are going on in third world countries, where we're affecting other countries, everything. Also, the fact that we are resident-led is also tied into this. We want residents to feel powerful, to feel like they have decisions and that they can work with other people, and to realize the power of working with other people. When I was part of Youth Spirit Artworks and when I was part of Tiny Village Spirit, what I found to be very moving and powerful and to really promote me to be an activist and to do things was the fact that was to learn that when we come together, we are so much stronger than our single parts. It's quite amazing, and a lot of people don't really realize that that power is there. If I were to say one word of advice for changing just everything that is going on in the world, it would be to organize. And lastly, art. Again, I do feel art is very important, especially art with a meaning behind it. It can move people, it can change people. It is impactful, and there is many forms of art that can make a real difference. So having some kind of form of art and beauty everywhere in your villages, having systemic change, resident-led, can be very powerful and moving. Thank you. These are our contacts, and our website down here.
Okay, I'm Jamie Zachary. I'm with Central Dallas Community Development Corporation. We're actually a repeat offender. We were here at the last conference. So I was pleased to be invited back, so my predecessor must have left a good impression. Before I start talking about our tiny home village, I'd like to just give a little background of what we do at CDCDC. We were founded 20 years ago with the mission of providing housing for our homeless neighbors in the Dallas metro area. Our first project was finished in 2007. We had refitted an empty office building in downtown Dallas and turned it into a multi-use project featuring 3 floors of commercial space, 200 units of affordable and long-term supportive housing, and then the top floor is actually condominiums owned by high-value individuals. So it's a truly multi-income, multi-purpose property. The success of that property allowed us to have significant sway with the city when it came to developing the cottages. The cottages started out, we really started pushing for it in 2011. It finished in 2016, largely funded by the city and private donors. It was completed in 2016, largely with the city and funding from the city and private donors. The need in the community in Dallas, has a large homeless population, and our founder, Larry James, he had recognized, he had 4 tenets: the housing, health, hope, and hunger. And we had a sister nonprofit that addressed the other 3 H's, and we addressed the housing. And by providing the cottages next to our other nonprofit organization, we were able to then have services, wraparound services, right across the street from where we were building our cottages. The main goal of the cottages originally was to target individuals who had experienced chronic homelessness and recidivism that also had criminal records, drug addiction, or mental illness. Initially, this had created a lot of pressures for the property, and over time, we focused on adjusting the blend of the neighbors to not all have criminal records, mental illness, and substance abuse, so that initially we had lots of vandalism and theft, and as we adjusted the blend of the neighborhood, the composition of the village, that has been greatly reduced, and we have less recidivism and less neighbors who are leaving early or leaving the property because of problems. So we find that mixing the population has been very successful in maintaining continuum of care with the individuals that live there. Originally, a lot of our referrals came from the criminal justice system and from an institute called The Bridge. Now we almost exclusively get our neighbors through Housing Forward, which is a organization, I think they're all over the country, but they work with the city of Dallas to provide vouchers for people to come live at both of our properties. Here's actually, I think the last time we were here, we only had pictures of what they might look like. Here's what our cottages look like. This is the external and internal. As noted, all the cottages here will have a tiny kitchen and a separate bedroom and bath, so it serves as a one bedroom instead of as an efficiency. They're approximately 400 square feet. They are heated and aired. They do have climate control, because in Texas you need that. This is one of our neighbors enjoying his front porch. We find that a lot of the neighbors spend a lot of the time on their porches. Many of them have them decorated. We are providing some gazebos. We have a green space that's not featured in one of these photos that will be providing like more space for them to sit outside. We provide a variety of services on site. We have case management. We have a nurse who comes daily to help with medication management for those who require it. We provide life skills training, mental health services, of course, employment assistance, and substance abuse services. These are done with our partner organizations, other nonprofits that come to the property or are located across the street. So far, our results, like I said, we completed in 2016. The cost of the property, land included at the time, was just over $9 million, which basically came out to about $140,000 per unit. That's probably a lot less nowadays, as tiny homes have become a lot more mainstream. There's a lot more developers for that than there were at the time. We had all of ours custom built, so there was a lot of high cost. We've provided housing in this property only for over 200 neighbors since opening, and everyone who lives there is on a voucher from the city of Dallas. They only pay $50 a month in rent, so they are responsible for a minimal amount. We have work programs so that in the event that they need, if they don't have income other than, that they can work in our community garden or help do the landscaping, and then that offsets their rents for the month. The property, after lots of challenges for the first 4 to 5 years, it is now a financially stable operating property and cash flows positively, so that will allow us to follow our model to, on our next properties, start from the beginning with cash flowing properties, so it'll help continue more properties. Because obviously you have to make money to keep doing this.
Thank you so much, Jamie. And really exciting to have the organization back. And can I get a show of hands? How many people were here at the first Tiny Home Summit? All right, fantastic. So everybody else is new like me? Yeah? Thank you for coming back, and it's exciting to see the completion of this project. Round of applause again, if we can have for all of our panelists. We're going to go ahead and get started with a couple of questions that I think I'm hoping all of you can answer for us, so we can, maybe just kind of go down the line here. I really appreciated the different models that each of your projects has, from kind of immediate shelter to permanent supportive housing to permanent housing and community village. And you all seem to have gotten there in kind of a different way, right? And you all did a great job of kind of sharing like how your project started. So we've got community development corporations, we've got, nonprofit organizations coming from, right, arts and youth, coming from faith-based initiatives. So I think the lesson I'm hearing here is there's no excuse for any of us to not do this, is what I'm hearing here with a variety of backgrounds. But I'm wondering, for this first question actually, if you could name a challenge that you faced that was expected, and this, again, you don't have to name them all, but some of you mentioned these in your presentations, a challenge that you faced that was expected, whether from a kind of initial project to your secondary project, but also maybe a challenge you faced that was unexpected.
I guess the most unexpected challenge was, well, we spent a lot of time worrying about the environment or the location that we would choose, but it turned out that really we needed to just focus on the youth and making sure that they're safe with each other and building community and support around that. Surprisingly, location doesn't impact as much. It's more of just the mental health of the people who are living together.
Thank you. Tracy.
Sure. If you knew our founder and CEO, Alan Graham, you would know that he loves a challenge. So I think in some ways, nothing was expected and all was expected. So we had our fair share of NIMBY, and I think the extreme aspects of that were not expected. We were spit at, we were escorted out for something we thought we were just caring for the community, right? So how much of a challenge that was. I will add to that, today we're in the ETJ, extraterritorial jurisdiction of Travis County and not in the Austin city limits, which is a really huge benefit to building. And I think expected, we know that it costs money to do this, and will the community respond to that? Because as a nonprofit, we needed the community to make it happen.
Thank you, Tracy.
I would second that on the expected. Getting the money to do these projects is a expected issue. Our biggest unexpected issue for my properties is actually with everyone coming through the municipalities with their vouchers is actually maintaining full occupancy, because the process to get people through their vouchers is really, really slow in Dallas, and we have people who are on list for 2 or 3 months because they can't find a birth certificate or they can't get whatever documents they need to in order to get through the system to get housed. And one thing I would really, in our case it's HUD money, so it's federal funds, I'd really like to see a system where in order to get housed, we didn't have to wait for all that paperwork to get finished for people to be homed, because not everyone knows their birth dates or their actual birth names anymore. And so it really becomes a challenge for some people on our side to get people in the homes. And it's frankly, we have 30 units available right now and we can't get people moved in. So that's a shame.
Interesting, thank you. Ralph.
Expected challenges, I would say we really expect neighbors, business owners, and homeowners to, get upset about us bringing tiny house villages and shelters to the community, which, it's surprising because we do a community notification. We see all these community members, get upset, just like what, she said earlier. They're upset, we don't want this, we don't want that. But after they see what it really looks like and what the goal is, these same people that yells at us and screams at us are the same people that comes back 2 months, 3 months later and, well, hey, how can we help? We're bringing more food. Here's some services. What can we offer? Like, they just need to, I think community just really need to know and see what really it is like. And so we are really big into like inviting other states, cities, organizations to come into our village where they can take pictures, take videos, and promote that, hey, this works and it makes sense, and this is what it looks like, not what you guys are thinking when you say tiny houses.
Thank you all for that. We're going to open up to questions from the floor. Actually, I'm going to start with our Commissioner Arfa.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Rachel Arthur, and I'm the Commissioner for the City of Chicago Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. I've learned so much from each of you this morning, so thank you for your presentation and for your hard work in building these communities. I would love to know how you centered accessibility for people with disabilities in each of your communities. Specifically physical access, such as for people whose medical wheelchairs and power wheelchairs and other mobility devices, and also thinking about communication access.
Whoever would like to go first.
I'm happy to start. 100% of the people that live at Community First Village have some sort of disability, so it's at the front of our minds. I will say that we learned along the way, because at the very beginning we were just trying to get people housed, and so we were just building and bringing houses, and today, now that we're past that, we have that in mind as we are designing. We have now put ramps into different spaces, and we also just kind of learn from those who are living there and kind of meet the need. We do an annual survey from all of the neighbors to figure out what we're missing, what we don't know. We have quarterly town halls that people can come and share. They can drop by anytime. We know the people that live there really well, and so learning from them of what we are needed, what we need to build a home-built community.
We also have wheelchair accessible houses and ramps at our village, so we've spent some time thinking about that as well.
I would echo that as well. I don't say 100% of mine, but probably 90% of our neighbors have some form of disability. We have 10% of our tiny homes are built with ramps specifically for those who need them, and of our refitted office building it was designed with disabilities in mind.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. We just wanted to get it going, and so we learned a lot from the whole journey over the last couple of years, and we've developed, as we continue building more tiny houses, we've developed more accessible units, ramps, and we focus this and really hear from the community and the residents too as well.
We've got our second question.
Hi, all. I'm Dominique. I am the Housing Policy and Advocacy Manager at AIDS Foundation Chicago. And I am curious, well, my question is actually sort of tied to the previous panel. Some of you sort of touched on this already, but when we think about housing first, my mind initially goes to getting someone housed and then ensuring that all of the rest of their needs are met. So I'm wondering what kind of work you all are doing to make sure that you're removing barriers, making it easier to get people into your programs, and specifically outside of cost, right? Like, what are you doing for people who use drugs? What are you doing for people who have varying criminal legal system involvement? I'm just curious about how you're kind of being as inclusive as possible in your entry process.
In our situation, our placement for our properties is done by a partner organization that handles all of that. So we handle just the housing aspect of things. And so while we provide the space for all those continual services, we partner with other nonprofits for all of that. So I myself do not have any hand in that. We have partner organizations that handle that for us.
I guess I'll use some of our villages that are low barrier harm reduction housing first model. And so in Washington, we have, they don't necessarily need to have an ID, state ID or social security in order to come in, because that's one of the biggest barriers. They don't have anything. So City of Seattle developed this ID for people who are homeless. And so we have that ID as long as they are entered in the system. And we move them in, we move them in without ID, social security. We know that they are probably using and they have some serious mental health issues. And that's why we have case managers on site. We partnered with multiple organizations to provide substance abuse and mental health counseling as well. As far as drugs, and I think this is like one of the biggest question in the community, right? Like, how do you deal with drugs when it comes to harm reduction? Like, we don't necessarily, and this is for the harm reduction villages only, we don't look at the drugs itself, we look at the behavior. That's why we have code of conducts that, you know, specifically outlines what are the violations when you live here. And, you know, are you creating a scene outside the village? Are you loitering around? Are you, you know, like damaging the common areas in your tiny house villages? Like, it's more about like the behavioral part of it and not the drugs. And yeah, thank you.
Very similarly, we partner with organizations, agencies throughout the Austin area. We actually have about 40 different agency partners that are referring people to come and move in, and ensuring that people do have case managers, do have access to that. We like to say we know what we do well, and we move people home and we build community, and then we need professionals in all of these other spaces to come in. So we do have on-site partners that people can connect with immediately. We will not force any of that, but we do have recovery support services. We have restorative justice. We have elder care. We have behavioral health care. We have primary care as well, and other partners that we're utilizing to really provide those wraparound services.
Yeah, us as well. We have counselors and other support for youth who are experiencing any kind of issues, basically need help with therapy or need help with drug issues as well. We mainly target the behavioral. We don't do tests or search their rooms or anything. We understand that there are many youth who have certain addictions, and we just want to make sure that they are growing at the rate that they need to and improving, but also making sure that they're just being safe and giving them whatever support they need.
Thank you. Got our next question in the back.
Hi, my name is Robert Castillo. I happen to be a member of the City of Chicago's Advisory Council on LGBTQ issues. And I was wondering, how do you address LGBT community in your housing? Do you have specific villages? Do you have code of conduct that addresses anti-LGBTQ discrimination? Are there community councils to address conflict resolution?
We have a lot of LGBTQ people in our villages. Now, I'm not sure if we have had certain issues where people have specifically targeted these people, but there are times when certain things will come up. Different people living at the village may do something that may be against a certain group or be offensive or something, and the rest of the residents do not approve. And so we have to go in, obviously because we're youth-led, we're resident-led, we go in, we have a meeting, and then we change certain parts of our system and our rules. We do have a system in place, so if people are continually harassing or saying things, whatever, stealing or other things, they could be potentially removed from the village. We have had some issues where we had to go and have meetings and make changes about this. So if there were somebody who was coming up and saying homophobic statements or harassing our LGBTQ youth, obviously the rest of the residents would not stand for that, and we would have meetings around that to figure out what kind of things we would put into place and if it would count as part of our strike system and how we would implement that.
On site, we are open to everyone. Everybody can live there. Our main person who is eligible is somebody experiencing chronic homelessness in the Austin area. So that is essentially for 1 year. So we have everybody living amongst the community, all 400 and something. And unfortunately, we know this issue and other issues very well. One of the best things that we have been able to do is partner with the agency that I briefly mentioned, who provides some restorative justice, who will bring people together. They have community circles. They have kind of facilitate some of that time to rebuild and to call people out.
At our properties, we have not actually experienced any discrimination among the community. It is in our guidelines. It would be a violation. Any discrimination against, it's not even minorities. It's just if you treat other people bad of any nature, it's going to be a violation at our properties. We don't tolerate it. It disturbs the community. And so we do not segregate any. I was actually asked this by one of the neighbors the other day. He was like, "Are you putting all the disabled people on the same floor?" And I was like, "No, we just, wherever the opening is, we'll put whatever room's available." And so we do not segregate based on disability, mental health, anything at our properties.
Same in our villages. We accept everyone, and we don't look at. We accept and welcome everyone. We also look into, and revamp kind of like our hygiene centers, and now we have gender neutral bathrooms in all of our villages to ensure that that's one thing I can tell you is that in Seattle, we just had one of the biggest win when we got the approval to get the first LGBTQ community housing. And so we know that it takes a while for everyone else to kind of follow too. But it's like, let's start somewhere and let's continue to build, right? Like we started from one tiny house villages that accept anyone general homeless in Seattle. And from there, we have villages where we focused on Native Americans, African Americans. We have one that is all for females, women only shelter. And, it's something that we are also working on too.
Hi, I'm Nancy Powell from Inner Voice, Chicago. I'm not sure if I understood with each of you how you work with the land, but I think being in Chicago land, we see so many areas that are just abandoned and nobody's doing anything with this. And I've